Hello, good afternoon to everyone. Let me welcome you to this webinar, which is related to DORA and the implementation of DORA requirements in Archer. At the beginning, just a few points related to the webinar itself. Should you have any questions, please feel free to use chat to send us those questions. And also, this webinar is going to be recorded. So let me start. My name is Jana Stupňová and I will lead you through the webinar. And I do have also my colleagues here who will be helping me with different topics related to DORA. At the beginning, we will focus on DORA overview and Martin Antuš will help me with that. Then because DORA is a very complicated topic, I will tell you what paragraphs and what parts of DORA we have selected to show you during this webinar. Later on, I will ask my colleague Luciano from Archer, who will tell you a little bit about Archer in general. And then the main part of the webinar will be Archer demo, which will be also provided by Luciano. Now I would like to ask Martin to follow with the DORA overview.
Okay, thank you, Anna. At the very beginning, it would be good to say why DORA was created. After 2008 and the economic crisis, which was worldwide, financial security was increasing, but not to the level of safety and data security within the EU. Individual solutions were insufficient and fragmented. There were no uniform rules and tools, and the situation was not efficient. There were high administration and compliance costs, especially for cross-border entities. It has become clear that the individual differences in approaches between member states can only be resolved by action at union level. But no union legislation to date has focused on the operational resilience of companies, and none has comprehensively addressed the risk arising from digitalization. This is why DORA was created, and DORA is a regulation that brings solutions for digital operations resilience testing and oversight of critical third-party service providers. DORA also reducing cybersecurity risk and increasing digital resilience. Okay, if we can go to another slide. Okay. One more, please. Perfect. Thank you. As stated on the slide, DORA, the regulation aims to unify and harmonize digital and cybersecurity expectations for the entire financial sector at European level. And the main goal is to reduce cybersecurity risk in the financial sector and increase digital resilience. Who does it concern, or who is affected by this regulation? DORA affects banks, insurance and reinsurance companies, credit institutions, payment institutions, investment firms, fintech companies, crypto asset providers, and others. The regulation also addresses the third-party ITC service providers. DORA entered into force on 16 January of this year, and now there is a suspension period of 12 to 18 months, depending on the domain. It's also important to mention that this DORA regulation, as we can read it now, is on the level 1 regulation, and regulatory technical standards, RTS, are being and will be published during this year. Last Monday, the first RTS were published. It was RTS on ICT risk management framework and RTS on criteria for the classification of ITC related incident. And for these two published RTS, also public consultations are now open. Why you or other companies should care about this regulation, except for increasing cybersecurity maturity and reducing risk, you should be DORA compliant to avoid fines, because it's planned that fines could be imposed up to 1% of an organization's average daily worldwide turnover. The following steps for you or for a company, although the regulation is not yet in force, where it will come into effect in less than 19 months, it is advisable for companies to keep an eye on the draft regulation and the discussion itself now. Due to the wide range of requirements across all domains, the implementation timeframe may not be sufficient, especially for entities that do not have previous experience in these areas of risk management or have not yet been affected by other regulations such as GDPR. Okay, now we can go and look on the domains which DORA represents. And one more. Okay, thank you. As you can see here, there are 4 specific pillars or domains. The first one is ICT risk management, which comprises a set of principles and requirements for a risk management framework in a company. This ranges from strategy, policies, procedures, protocols, through to the monitoring and identification, detection of risk, and also subsequent risk analysis. The second requirement is the ICT-related incident reporting. This domain provides harmonizing rules for the provision, management, and reporting of incidents. And goal is to ensure consistent and integrated handling of identified incidents. Also, this requirement or this domain regulates the requirements and set requirements for reporting significant incidents to supervisory authority. And this authority will be also at EU level. Financial entities will be then required to submit initial, interim, and final reports, and to inform their users and clients when an incident has or may have an impact on their financial interest. The third domain is digital operational resilience testing. In this domain, financial entities will be required to test their digital resilience of their tools, systems, and infrastructure as part of the ICT governance framework. The fourth and last domain is ICT risk associated with third parties. This domain defines general principles for proper risk management and lists the main provisions for financial entities, which will be obliged to take account into outsourcing and vendor contracts with third parties. These, for example, include a full list of services, relevant provisions on accessibility, availability, integrity, right of access, control, and also audit by the financial or designated third party. Okay, and now I would like to briefly speak about our services, or how we as Deloitte can help you. For this regulation, we provide several services. The first one is benchmark, when we can provide you a readiness and conduct for you or a company a high-level gap analysis. We also developed our own Deloitte CE, Deloitte Central Europe benchmark based on our experience and also industry standards from real data. Then we also can provide a detailed gap analysis, which will be performed by our advanced maturity assessment tool, which I will be speaking on the next slide. And with this gap analysis, we are providing a detailed description of the current status, including the action plan, where optimizing processes to comply with regulation will be described, And also we provide you improvement and prioritization of the weak points, so you will be able to address the most critical topics first. And we are also able to help you with advisory and the whole implementations of solutions for you to be compliant with the DORA regulation, and also help you to establish a robust risk management process to comply with the regulation as now and also in the future, including the published and released RTS. Okay, and now just quickly something about our DORA maturity assessment tool, which we are using for benchmarking and also during bigger projects such as detailed gap analysis, and then also for subsequent advisory services. What we did before we started, we literally broke down the DORA regulation article by article, paragraph by paragraph, and requirement by requirement, and we created specific requirements here. We did that on level that we see fit, that those questions could be understandable, but also having informational value for you and also for your company. Everything was created based on our strong experience, and we built the tool around that. What I mean, we are not asking you here just one question per each requirement. If you do comply with this, yes or no, that wouldn't bring much value. We included our know-how, and we comprehensively describe multiple possible scenarios in which your company could be at the moment. And we basically score your maturity per requirement, per question, per topic, per domain on the scale 1 to 5. And using this, we are able to bring the most to our clients. It has a couple of benefits. For example, client representative can fill it by themselves, which makes that even more affordable. And the clients will be able to provide several benchmarking, for example, at the beginning, during the process, and right before the DORA will be enforced. It's not an excellent exercise. We put it into a tool. It also offers automated reporting. Some of the reporting features you can see on the right side of the slide, and the reporting features include spider chart, heat map, or even domain overview. And also, the last important feature which I would like to share, and was created also based on feedback from our clients, is a mapping of requirements to a specific activity and to a specific role. So for example, if you answer during the questionnaire that you don't have this requirement, or you only comply with this requirement partially, we are able to right away say that this requirement is going, for example, to CISO role. And at the end, when we will give you the final report, we will give you the gaps with the requirements, and also the person who should be responsible for this. So based on our experience, this saves a lot of time, because it happens a lot that once the requirements go to the company, a huge discussion about who should be responsible for this starts. So thank you for your attention. This was everything from my side, and back to you, Jana. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin, for your overview of DORA requirements in general. And I will now focus on just one part of DORA, because we cannot cover all DORA requirements during one webinar. So we decided to start from ICT Risk Management Framework and Article 6, where the main topic of this webinar would be asset management, because we understand that a good asset management is actually a basic of DORA requirements, and where you should start and what you should have in place to be able to comply with other requirements which are built up to the asset management. So asset management is mentioned in Article 6 and then in Article 8, in more details in Article 8. In Article 6, you can see that you should map everything up down to the level of hardware and servers from top of the business processes and business products. What you have to do, you should be able to define dependencies between all these supporting assets and business function and products. And you also should be able to find ICT vulnerabilities which threaten your assets. And you definitely should know which assets are critical based on the criticality of the top level product or business function. We understand that this is very difficult to comply, and that's why we asked our colleague Luciano to let you show how this can be completed in Archer GRC system, because this is the basic, and this is where you can start to build your risk management system. So I will now pass to Luciano and ask him to provide you a little bit of Archer overview and then focus on asset management related to DORA requirements.
Yeah, thank you, Jana. So good afternoon to everyone. So I will give you first a quick overview of what Archer is and how it can support the DORA regulation, and then I will jump into the demo. So first of all, for those of you who's not familiar with Archer, Archer is a suite of integrated risk management solutions, and these solutions cover the typical GRC integrated risk management domains in any organization, starting from compliance, operational risk, third-party risk, IT security audit, resilience management, and also operational resilience. And these solutions are built on top of a common platform that's called Archer Platform, and which provides the basic services to build any solution like access control tools, dashboarding, reporting, calculation engine, and integration mechanism, and so on. And the platform is the key element in Archer to provide the necessary flexibility and configurability to adapt the out-of-the-box solutions to the specific business needs. Now, each solution is actually broken down into multiple functional modules that we call Archer use cases. And you can see there are many for each domain. Of course, they are specific for each domain. Sometimes there are some dependencies, like, for example, for the issues management that's aimed to manage the findings and the remediation plans. So they are actually used across the other solutions. But overall, they cover all the typical domains in any organization. This is the standard Archer portfolio, and in addition to this, we have another offerings that's called Archer Exchange that provides other offerings in other areas, like vertical applications that we call application packs that could be useful to address specific needs, for example, NIST, CSF, project management, and many other across multiple domains. We have also multiple integrations with external systems, many of which are about security, like SIEM systems, tools utility for admins, and also a lot of content. For example, I can anticipate that in the next August release, we will include the DORA regulations, so you'll be able to map the regulation into control standards, obligations, and controls to potentially build a control framework around the regulation itself. Now, as you know, DORA is a very complex regulation, and here I have reported the 5 pillars. I've also added the information and intelligence sharing as a pillar. So we can do basically a mapping between the required pillars in DORA and the Archer use cases. And there is a very good coverage of all the DORA pillars. So starting with risk management, we have a use case to address IT risk management in general. And I've reported also our risk quantification offerings because in my view, considering the big news of DORA that as you know, includes also a new structure for the ICT risk management function, which becomes actually an independent control function with its own budget and organizational unit. In my view, the reporting of ICT risk should actually be quantitative, should use the quantitative approach. So we can also address this aspect. And then we have other use cases like control assurance for IT controls. There's also the possibility of doing continuous control monitoring, of course, metrics and the regulation, they mentioned this several times. And there is also a module, IT security vulnerability management, because one of the key elements, and we see that in the demo, is about managing vulnerabilities. The vulnerabilities is one of the main responsible actors that triggers actually ICT risk. There are also governance aspects. I've reported a use case about an SMS system, and this area also includes all the traditional business continuity disaster recovery aspects of a generic business resilience process, and which includes also crisis management. In the incident reporting, we have one specifically that's aim to support incident management tailored for cyber risk. So cyber incident and breach response also, they are two different processes but connected together. In the judicial operational resilience testing, which is basically the most innovative aspect of DORA, we have, of course, the business impact analysis that's aimed to identify what are the critical processes, but also products and services. It has been extended, and I will show you in the demo. And we also have a specific module that's called operational scenario analysis. This is a use case that was primarily built to support the UK financial regulation about operational resilience, which was issued, I think, a couple of years ago. And basically, this module allows you to build scenario analysis or analysis scenarios and with specific threats, and also to measure, to some extent, the resilience scores, the resilience levels. But the same use case can also be used with some extensions to support DORA regulation. You see that in the next slide. We have a complete offerings about third-party risk to cover a generic third-party risk management process, and there is also a module that's aimed to support specifically to measure the security posture of any third party or the company itself, and they are all integrated together. And then in the information sharing, this is probably it's a part of the regulation that is very not well described, because there will be additional RTS document in the future. But there is the possibility basically to capture any kind of threat that can be derived from content providers. And I've also highlighted, which is the corporate obligations management. So the idea is to capture threat information that could potentially impact the digital resilience of the organization. And I've reported also other additional capabilities that might be used, like integration with additional tools. So the idea is to capture and to prioritize the threats of different kinds. They are not necessarily just about cyber risk. They could also be about ESG. They could be about regulations that change. So anything that can affect or impact in some way the digital resilience of the organization. And then, as you know, there are also some aspects that are actually cross pillars, like the possibility to map the assets, different types of assets, but also tracking policies, tracking issues, and also something about audit management. Of course, you may wonder, hey, do I really need to implement all of this stuff to implement DORA? Of course, the answer is no. So only the modules that are needed, because most of the organizations already have implemented over the past years many of those capabilities. And so what is absolutely key is to understand what's needed to fill the gap. And here comes into play what Martin previously described in terms of the process, which is absolutely key. And I'm specifically referring to the gap analysis that's aimed to understand where you are today, where you want or you should be in the future. And of course, in the action plan, we can identify the modules, the Archer use cases that are needed. Okay, so it depends, of course, on your specific posture, how the level of maturity of the different processes, and from this point of view, any organization is actually different. Okay, so now let's take a look at the demo.
Luciano, I just wanted to add one more thing to your previous slide, and that is, you already mentioned that organization may have some, for example, system methodology in place. It's very, very good that you don't start from the scratch, and that there is many options how you can connect Archer to your systems. You can integrate to you don't have to build everything again. And also, Deloitte and Archer work very closely together to pre-configure Archer to be to help you to be DORA compliant. We are still waiting for RDS, which has been mentioned several times during this webinar. So once everything is agreed and public, we will have the configuration prepared. But also, we would need your gap analysis and your action plan to make sure that everything fits your needs.
Yeah, thank you, Anna, for the clarification. About the demo, as I said, DORA is really a complex regulation which includes a lot of requirements. So we have selected a subset of them, probably what we can consider something like a foundational layer. As Jana pointed out, we will be focusing basically on the management of assets. So basically, this is what I will show in the demo in a few minutes. So Archer can be used to capture, to document all the assets that are involved in their relationships. So that's about management, the mapping of the assets, including the third parties, because third parties are a fundamental element of any resilience program, because we need to observe the organization from the external point of view, and third parties, as you know, especially in the context of the digital transformation initiatives, are absolutely a key ingredient. The next one is, of course, I need, as Jana said earlier, we need to establish and understand what is the criticality of the services and the products. So services and products is what the organization delivers. So we are interested in understanding to what extent a threat can affect the delivery of those digital services. And we can do this through a business impact analysis. Traditionally, the BIA was used in the context of business resilience initiatives like business continuity, disaster recovery, targeting, targeting the processes. So we have extended the BIA functionality to include also the other type of asset, which are the products. And the products and services rely on the processes. You'll see that in a second. Eventually, after I have identified the criticality of product and services, thanks to the relationship that I've mapped earlier, I can cascade down this criticality information down to the devices. And if I also include the possibility to capture and to monitor the vulnerabilities associated with the devices, I can quickly spot what are the critical vulnerabilities associated to the critical devices. And finally, we'll see that an example of the operational scenario resilience and scenario testing as an example to show you that it can actually be used and extended, and I've just added a slight extension to the environment, that this scenario testing can also be used for DORA as a basis to document all the outcome of the resilience testing required by DORA. So last slide, this is the demo scenario. So as I said, Archer allows you to map any kind of assets. These are the traditional assets like product and services, business process, applications, devices on top of facilities. These are just the key relationships. There are, of course, many others, but they are just focused on the assets. Of course, I cannot, by the way, if you notice, the information about the devices, facilities, and applications are typically stored in a CMDB system. So we can pull this information, if you have that available, or from multiple CMDB systems, in order to assign and correctly assign values to the involved assets. Then, as I said, a key ingredient are the third parties, and we can document the relationships between the third parties and product and services, but also all the supply chain. So third parties are linked to a set of subcontractors, and subcontractors, the set of subcontractors defines the whole supply chain. It's basically a limitless type of hierarchy. So eventually what I want to do is to run a BIA targeting other processes or products and services, as in case of resilience. So in this way, by running this BIA, I will be able to establish the criticality of the product and services, and thanks to the relationship, it will cascade down at the devices level. So if I also use the module that's aimed to support the end-to-end process of vulnerability management, that is called IT Security Vulnerability Program Management, we will be able to pull from the security scanners the vulnerability scan results of the detections that are associated with specific devices. And we'll be able to identify if there are critical vulnerabilities, where critical vulnerabilities based on the CVSS score. And if we mix this information with the criticality of the device, we will be able to spot the vulnerabilities associated with critical devices. Eventually, by the way, the criticality can also cascade down any kind of other hierarchy, including third parties. So this means that using the same approach, we could also identify what are the elements in the supply chain, so the subcontractors and third parties that are mapped into the critical devices and many other things. Finally, we'll see the operational resilience testing. So the idea is to build a scenario analysis. A scenario analysis typically aimed to understand if, given a specific threat, for example, like a cyber attack, the organization, to what extent the organization is resilient. To understand the resilience, we need to understand if the impacts, which can be of different types, can be accepted, absorbed by the organization or not. And we do this in general by defining impact tolerances that can be of different types. It could be about how many customers I'm going to lose due to this threat, or this could be what is the downtime I can experience, or how much money I will be losing because of the threat, and so on. And I can also document, by the way, the service interruptions as required by the DORA regulation itself. So basically, in the scenario analysis, we can test the effect of a threat against a set of specific tolerances. So we have a bunch of scenario results, and which will fail or not. And if they fail, I can document the issue using findings. So the finding is something that went wrong. And after the finding, I can associate remediation plans, so I can track all the activities around the fixing all of these issues. Okay, so this is the scenario, and of course, as I said, this specific module was built on top of the UK regulation issued by the PRA and the Bank of England. But the same structure can also be used for DORA. For DORA requires a different set of tests, like vulnerability scan, penetration testing, performance testing, software testing of different kinds, and so on. So we can capture the outcome of this process into the same scenario analysis. And in this case, thanks to this module, we also have the possibility to track the progress, because we can measure the resilience. And so this is not explicitly stated in the regulation, but of course, if I am testing resilience, I want to measure the progress over time and understand whether or not the resilience of my organization is improving. Okay, so now let's jump into the demo environment. So this is Archer. Archer is a fully web-based solution. Again, it includes multiple modules. Here I've reported some of them, but Archer is also fully configurable. So I created a very simple DORA workspace here with some information. I will not go deep into these modules, but just to show you, I can have the so-called dashboards to monitor the posture of given processes. So the idea is to collect into a single place multiple reports that provide different information about the different aspects, in this case of DORA. This is focused on resilience, but there are many other information about IT security risk or business continuity plans, etc. So the assets. Here I created a simple report to track what are the relationships between the products and services down to the devices. So if you click here, I call this stuff DORA value chain, and let's expand this stuff. The report is displayed and it shows all the products and services that my organization is delivering. So I've created a very tailored name so that you can quickly spot them. And here, as you can see, I have a product and service. They are in a hierarchical relationship, so I can expand it. It's very simple, just one product, one process, one application, and multiple devices. So you can track the documentation. By the way, here you see the third parties that are associated with the product, but we also have facilities down here. And in general, we can track any other type of asset. You can also build your own if you want, so objects from scratch and so on. As you can see here, the resilience rating, criticality rating is currently not rated, but there is one in this device that is rated. Why? The reason is that devices could be shared across multiple hierarchies like this. So below here, I have another product that's called Cloud Hosting Services. And this product was rated with a medium-low criticality. And as you can see, it's mapped into a bunch of devices. And the last one is exactly the same. So this is medium-low because of this rating. Okay, so you can have multiple hierarchies that insist in the very same device. The same would be for processes and applications. So the idea is that if we can assess the criticality of a given element in this hierarchy just by picking the maximum of the criticality of the stuff associated with that stuff. So that said, this is about the mapping. Now I want to establish the criticality. So what can I do? I can, in general, the BIA, you need always to consider two aspects. One is about the methodology and aspect, so how you calculate, you know that in general, the BIA is aimed to derive the RTO and the PO of the processes in general, but now we're talking about the services that has been extended to establish the criticality. And so in addition to the methodology aspect, there are also the operational aspects. How do you conduct a BIA targeting, for example, multiple services? And in general, the operational activities are structured as assessment campaigns. So in general, we have a BIA campaign. So we build a campaign, we scope the campaign, meaning that we identify the elements that allow us to identify the possible targets, in this case, a product and services. And then we push a button and we generate the BIA record. It's just like sending out Excel spreadsheet, but of course they are Archer content driven by a workflow, so everything can be automated and tracked and monitored. Okay. However, for these demo purposes, I will not create a campaign for 10 reasons. So you can also create a BIA for targeting a specific product and services. So I'm focusing now on the specific DORA product. This is the representation of this type of asset. So for each type of asset, Archer provides a default data model, which is typically very rich. So we have each object is described by a series of different attributes. As you can see, they are organized in sections that they can be collapsed or expanded. Here you can see you can also capture the different relationships across products and services. If you want, you can capture third parties if they are attached to the device and so on. But we also have a lot of other stuff, as you can see, also the asset corresponding. So if I want to assess the criticality, here we see operational resilience tab. So I switch to this tab. And what I can do here, I have I need to switch to the business impact analysis. That was another thing. And here, again, for demo purposes, because the BIA is typically a questionnaire with a lot of questions, so I have already pre-built a BIA, and I will show you just the last steps of the process. In this case, so this BIA is already started. It has a workflow. It's in the status in process, but it's not yet rated because it will be rated after the workflow is complete. So if I switch into down into the BIA, this is the default BIA template that is provided by Archer. Like any BIA template, it includes some general attributes, and in this case, this is the target. The other possibility is to scope the BIA by process instead of product and services. We have, of course, some stakeholders because there is a workflow behind this. And in this case, the workflow is very simple, but it could be as complicated as you need with multiple stakeholders, because in general, the BIA is composed of multiple questions like this, which are broken down into multiple sections like financial, compliance, reputation, customer impact, and ESG. Of course, this is the default template. You can easily replace those questions with your own template. You can also change the workflow. You can change pretty much anything you like. So, of course, you might have even different stakeholders responding to these questions, each for his own area of expertise. Anyway, so you can respond to these questions. Questions are typically of this type but it could be of any kind, so depending on your methodology. So here I've responded to all the questions, so I'm ready, and I simply submit for approval the BIA. So after I submit for approval, the workflow engine starts again, resumes the execution. This green banner means that the workflow is running, and so it's doing all the calculations. The RTO and RPO is calculated, but it's made available at the process level, and now the status is awaiting for review. To keep things simple, I've not logged in another user, so I have just set the reviewer as myself. Of course, this is not the best practice, but I can simply approve so that the criticality level is established and propagated to the at the product level. So now the workflow completes. Of course, this would be repeated for each and every product and services that is in scope. So I will close it. We needed to refresh this stuff, and basically because this is the BIA. In general, by the way, the BIA is a periodic process, typically done once per year. So in the solution, when you start a new BIA, the current BIA gets archived, and a new BIA will replace the existing one. So at this stage, I have the product and services, and the criticality level is established, and it's medium high. Okay, and the previous value, if you remember, was medium low at the device level. So now let's take a look at what happens at the hierarchy level. So I will assess the stuff, the criticality rating, and as you can see, the criticality rating takes some time, some seconds in general. But as you can see, it's cascading down. So from the product level down to the process level, down to the application level, it takes maybe a few seconds. Okay, here we go. So basically, you can see the outcome in real time, the effect of cascading. And as you can see here, the web services, the criticality level was now replaced with a medium low due to this one. And if I scroll down, you see here, this became medium high as well. So this is the effect of the cascade down. But now before, this web server was medium low, and it had some, here I've counted the number of critical vulnerabilities, and it was 3 critical vulnerabilities. And since the criticality was medium low, probably I could have just ignored them. But now the criticality level is much higher. So now I have a critical service that whose criticality cascaded down at the device level, and now I have these vulnerabilities. So what could happen from the operational perspective is that, well, first of all, I might have a notification that there are some critical vulnerabilities mapped onto the devices. Everything is dynamic. So as soon as the criticality level changes, you get this notification immediately because the scanners detected some critical vulnerabilities. Let's dive into this record. So this is the device. So it includes a predefined, again, data model. Let's switch to edit. These attributes are very rich, as you can see, tons of stuff. This information typically comes from ACMDB, okay? ACMDB, and but you could pull information from other systems if you wish. Now, if I want to take a look at the vulnerabilities, I can scroll up, and as you can see, devices are mapped into tons of other processes. So if I switch to the vulnerability management, this is the section where all the information coming from the device scanners that have been integrated with the solutions are actually grouped. And here, if I scroll down, I have the vulnerabilities that have been detected for this device thanks to the scanners. This solution supports multiple types of scanners, typically DIR, Qualys, Tenable Nessus, and Rapid7. You can have multiple types of scanners because not all of them have the same capabilities. But here you see we have 3 critical capabilities. And now what should I do? Of course, if I have critical vulnerabilities mapped into critical devices, I'm expected to fix them. So how Archer can support this operation? Through the vulnerability tickets. So the vulnerability ticket is basically the structure that allows you to group together the vulnerabilities that you want to address using a workflow. So the goal is to engage the people involved in the vulnerabilities. There are multiple ways of doing the aggregation, identifying the possible targets depending on the maturity of your process. But the key aspect is that these tickets could be created automatically. Okay, so this means that after the BIA is run and the scanners detected the vulnerabilities, everything is pulled together, as you have seen, and immediately after, a vulnerability ticket could be automatically created, packaging those vulnerabilities and sending out the ticket to the department that is responsible to manage those vulnerabilities. This scenario is just what it is, perfectly feasible, and it works. Okay, so far we have seen all the criticality mapping, the BIA, and the vulnerability. So we have spotted the critical vulnerabilities mapped into critical devices. The last item is about the operational scenario analysis. To describe this, I would pick the other product because there is some meaningful demo content. So I'm switching to the other product, which is exactly the same from the structure perspective. So let's switch into edit. And as you can see in the products, there is this operational resilience tab. So I click on the tab, and here I have a bunch of information that is about, for example, the resilience pillars. So I can measure, because in the UK regulation, yeah, there are 5 pillars, slightly different. They are about cyber, facility, IT, people, and supplier. This means that you could also measure, rank the criticality based on these pillars, of course. But above all, what I said is that you need to define the tolerances that we will use to measure to what extent the impact is tolerable or not. And then you can define the scenario. So let's take a look at how the scenario analysis is defined. So this is the operational scenario analysis. So we have a bunch of information at the beginning, but above all, again, we have we select the impact tolerances that will be tested in the context of the scenario. So I can document the threat. The threat is documented at this level in the mapping, okay, somewhere, okay, the mappings. So here in the mappings, I document the resilient, the threat that I want to test the scenario against. And so I define the tolerances. And basically my goal is to measure if the impact that derives from the threat is tolerable or not, comparing against those tolerances. So what the solution does, it automatically builds some scenario results, which are this one for each impact tolerance that is defined. And then, of course, the testing, the real testing operation happens outside of Archer. Okay, in Archer, I document the stuff for governance reasons. And here I can set yes, in this case, the solution allows you to assess the impact both qualitative or in a quantitative way. So we capture the outcome of the impact, we compare that impact with the tolerance that we have defined, and we can identify whether or not the specific combinations, the results are failure or passing. Okay, we can also do something more, because if a scenario fails, we can document why that failed. Did that fail because a process failed, or because the product failed, or the issue, there was an issue in an application, an issue in a device, on a facility, or in a third party? So we can visually capture some data points that allows us to understand to what extent the scenario failed. And again, as I said, this was built on top of the requirements of the UK regulation about the operational resilience. But again, the structure can be used for DORA as well, because there is a concept of scenario, of course. We can also capture the lesson learned, and we can also, of course, sorry, in the lesson learned, I can document the findings, so I can track if something is going bad, so I can associate the remediation plan to address the remediation. So I'm documenting the full cycle from the threat, the scenario, what we tested, the impact, the findings, and then the remediation. And finally, as I said, and as an example, this stuff can be extended. So DORA requires a specific set of tests, like penetration testing, vulnerability testing. Here I reported something that was available. We could do also assessments at different levels. So the idea is that you can easily extend the scenario concept to include all the DORA specific aspects that the organization may want to implement. Okay, and that's all. That's pretty much for the demo. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing to what you just have shown us. You mentioned several times that it's UK related, but I just wanted to highlight again that DORA specific requirements are not yet published and finalized. So that's why we haven't implemented yet, but it's definitely in plan. And once we have all RTS, this module will be configured, updated to fulfill completely DORA requirements.
Yeah, correct.
Muted. Great. Okay, now we are at the end of the demo, and I do have some questions here in chat, so I can start. And please, if you have anything else to ask, feel free to use chat to ask those questions. So the first question I have here is, how do you address the risk related to suppliers? Do you have benchmarking solution to monitor suppliers automatically based on independent audit? Martin, can you please answer?
Yeah, sure. Basically, the risk with suppliers is already implemented in our maturity assessment tool. It's from the chapter Managing of ICT Third-Party Risk from the regulation, articles 28 to 30. And we are also implementing RTS. For example, there was RTS which specifies the policy on ICT services performed by ICT third-party providers. And this was published also last Monday, 19th of June. And so far, the benchmarking solution to monitor suppliers in general is not in place. For our clients, we do a check of the DORA requirements based on the sample, where we check the contract requirements directly from the regulation. And also based from our experience, the main problem what we found is that for a lot of companies is that they have to define the ICT suppliers first to have some general list, and also they need to have a list of all critical ICT suppliers first. Then we can look into more advanced tools like benchmarking solutions to monitor suppliers automatically.
Yeah, and Archer can also help from this point of view, because you can implement, thanks to the third-party security use case, you can directly do a security assessment, having a risk score that can be broken down into multiple domains and subdomains, so you can have an idea. Given the name of the third party, you can have in a very quick time a security scoring across multiple devices. This information is integrated into Archer, so you could even contextualize the risk score that is detected by that use case. Behind the scene, you use risk recon for information, and that information can be merged into Archer, so you can contextualize the security score that comes from the security tool with a business criticality. Okay, so you can redefine that assessment and making sense of that scoring into your specific business context.
Okay, thank you both for your answer to that question. Is there any other question you would like to ask? Anyone else? Waiting for the chat. Actually, I do have one comment which I can give you until I get another question, and it's related to CMDB, to database of your assets, because right now what we've shown you is how Archer can actually use your CMDB to propagate, to cascade down the criticality of your assets, of your products, and down to the assets. But the background behind that is a configuration database, which you may have already have in your systems, and we can use your configuration database and connect it to the Archer, so you can use the capability of Archer on top of what you have in your system right now.
Yeah, you can also have some organizations, especially the biggest one, have multiple CMDBs. So multiple CMDBs can actually be integrated into the same tool to have the complete picture. And of course, there are also organizations that do not use the CMDBs, and Archer can use, it's not a CMDB, but it can provide a similar set of services, at least to track the assets and their relationships. So both types of scenarios are possible.
Okay, it looks like there's no other question right now. So I would like to thank you for your attendance. Please let us know if there is anything else you would like to ask and you didn't have a chance to write it down into the chat, or you just came up with something 2 minutes just after the webinar, and don't worry to contact us and we can discuss in more details. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending the webinar.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye. Good day. Bye-bye.